Provision for television in the classroom. Many educators are skeptical about using television in the classroom because myths such as students won't actively watch these programs, TV won't promote students' critical thinking skills or reading and writing skills, TV will not engage with every student and accommodate to their learning styles, TV shows require too much of the class period, visual literacy is not of the highest priority, and movies are the best way of teaching visual literacy if you were to. But I'm hoping by the end of this presentation, these myths are put to rest and you feel inspired to integrate TV into your curriculum. To put to rest the idea that TV won't accommodate to students and their learning styles, Susan Saltrick, who is a doctor from Harvard University and is the vice president of National Foundations at Teach for America, advocates that educators should incorporate TV and media platforms because they do reach multiple types of learning styles. To test her theory, she did a study to see how people retain information and discovered people retain 50% of the information that they hear, 30% of they hear and view, 30% of the information that they just view, 20% of the information that they hear, and 10% of the information that they read. Plus, in a society that is so media-driven, incorporating television would increase student engagement and have them get excited to learn the lesson. There's many ways that you could incorporate TV into your classroom. Some ideas could be introducing topics, reinforcing lessons, broadening themes, initiating discussion, tying together cross-curricular connections, displaying alternative interpretations, personal connections and responses, teaching visual literacy skills, analyzing scenes and genres, identifying rhetorical appeals and fallacies, and narrative techniques. In order for students to really engage and do activities with visual literacy, it's necessary for educators to spend a few days just preparing them with visual literacy skills. To prepare, teachers could instruct students how to learn from camera angles and analyzing how camera angles can impact the scene's intensity, mood, and how characters are characterized. Like, for example, in this shot, Harry Potter is down from that angle, and because high-angle shots suggest vulnerability and weakness, like compared to the Batman right here, where he looks powerful. Another topic to go over before diving in deep into the subjects is high-key and low-key lighting and seeing how that impacts the scene, because it can either encourage an optimistic and upbeat reaction or rawness and openness from high-key lighting, which uses a lot of whites, or low-key lighting that encourages a negative, intense, or mysterious mood and uses a lot of dark colors. There's Mise-en-scene, which is examining costumes, makeups, props, facial expressions, symbols, arrangement of the setting, and music in a scene and how it impacts the viewer response. For example, in this is from Stranger Things, and you can see he's dressed up as Ghostbusters. The people around him, the students around him, are not dressed up, so it kind of implies that he's immature. You can see that it's Halloween, though, that he's in middle school, and his facial expression looks concerned. Concepts you need to prepare students with is transitions, such as fade outs, fade ins, zoom in, zoom out, dissolve, cuts, fast cuts, jump cuts, and wipes, and that show relationship of things, the relationships between them and other shots, and parallels. In this scene from Game of Thrones, Jon is discovered that he is a Targaryen when he thought he was not. He thought he was a bastard. And see how this scene, which is a backflash, zooms into the baby's face and out from Jon's. for integration. Also, an added benefit is that TV shows don't take as long as movies, so you can really, and even doing clips would work, but shorter time, and you can still reach all the marks that you would for movies. To have students open dialogue for cultural connections and create diverse perspectives is to show diverse television shows such as Jane the Virgin, which celebrates Latin American culture, emphasizes the added obstacles minorities endure, and bring up current issues such as citizenship, discrimination, and corrupted police. And students could talk about how they feel and how they connect with the characters and how they can relate their problems to theirs. To using counterclaims more richer, teachers could have students sample different genres such as soaps and dramas, documentaries, actions, and sitcoms, and have them distinguish the target audience and different conventions and codes. To dive even deeper, they could just look at sitcoms, and students could watch Blackish, which is a progressive type show, and Last Man Standing, which is a very conservative type show, but they're both about just one family, and they could distinguish how they talk and their different parenting styles, political opinions, and how they interpret controversial topics. Another thing you could do is have different groups of students look at different things like just camera angles or just makeup or just language, and so they could all develop their own roles and then work together to solve like big research topics. To stay relevant to the current age of society, Richard Felman, an English professor at University of Iowa, suggests that educators use television in the classroom, which heightens their student interests, opportunities to discuss culture, distinguish types of news, and not only analyze stylistic elements, but economic strategies as well. Teachers could have students compare their local print newspapers to national news programs all the way to global news programs, and see how they talk about situations differently and distinguish their bias and possible values. Practice on identifying rhetoric. You could have students evaluate characters' evidence of rhetoric, assessing their stance, their premise, and explain the significance of their rhetorical devices and appeals. For example, Friday Night Lights, which really connects with the athletes in the room. Students could watch the scene where Coach Taylor gives the never give up speech, and students could analyze his rhetorical devices, possibly write an analysis on it. Felman also suggests that teachers don't fast forward through commercials because you can use that as an opportunity to evaluate the persuasive techniques used in them. Likewise, when teaching logical fallacies, teachers can show a variety of programs to have students identify and elaborate on the significance of fallacious statements used. Using scaffolding, teachers could introduce logical fallacies by showing satirical portrayals, like, for example, this is from Parks and Rec when she wants to add a tax to sugar and soda. And one of the Pawnee citizens says, if sugar is so bad for you, why did God make it taste so well? Obviously to be funny, but then a less explicit version would be watching Judge Judy and seeing how people argue their stance. So that way they are prepared when they have to identify more complex and difficult examples in newspapers and literature and political debates. There are so many ways you can incorporate narrative techniques into the curriculum with using television shows, and that also encourages active viewing and critical thinking and having the students really dive into the storyline. For example, if students were watching Once Upon a Time, which is a show about storybook characters coming to life. They could write a eulogy for Captain Hook using relevant information about his attitude, values, relationships, and milestones in the show. To challenge the students' perspectives and broaden themes, teachers can show complex shows that challenge them to clarify their stance. For example, if we're in a Justice vs. Mercy unit and reading different philosophies such as Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Machiavelli, educators could show a scene from Game of Thrones where Daenerys scams the slave master by falsely promising a dragon so she could gain an army, give them all the opportunity to be free or to fight with her and start a rebellion against slavery and prepare them to go to war in a different country. Sometimes by having these conversations in a fantasy realm, it makes it easier to discuss and clarify their stances on being honorable, being dishonorable for the greater good, their ethics on choosing justice and mercy, peaceful and violent protesting, and power philosophies. Presentation, I hope that you all remember the educational benefits and the unlimited opportunities that integrating television provides. Also, apologies because adding narration to Google Slides is basically impossible. Thank you.